She's from Santa Clara Pueblo, and she works as program coordinator for Tewa Women United's Environmental Health and Justice Program. She is a poet, farmer, musician, teacher, and mother. She is a Green for All Fellow, has been a member of Las Mujeres Hablan for 4 years, the Women Speak, and is currently serving as chair for 2 boards, H.O.P.E, which means Honor Our Pueblo Existence, and Santa Clara Day School. You can learn more about Beata and her work at tewawomenunited.org. Thank you, Beata. Please speak to us.
Thank you, Mbiakendi. Hopefully I won't burst into tears after hearing everybody here. I'm also pregnant right now, so I'm really emotional and hot. If you see me up here sweating. And hopefully I pray that, these babies to come will be protected. You'll hear more about that with Dr. Arjan Makajani, who'll be speaking about who is protected right now. So hopefully that's a standard that we could address. And when I think about spiritual activism, it's almost like talking about the roots of where I come from, because when we think about the culture of violence that we're all a part of, it goes back to that original violence that was enacted upon indigenous people in Turtle Island, in South America. And I think until it's made right with them, the nuclear issue is just an extension of that same culture of violence that our society is founded on. And so as far as my spirituality, it's I think with my my Tewa people, it's provided us that resilience and that one piece of ourselves that we've been able to hold on to when everything else has been taken away. And so it's what we have, it's knowledge that's willing to be shared with everybody, like all indigenous people everywhere. But for that to happen, it needs to be elevated, and it needs to be equal to the science that is out there. And it's the issue of equality, and that this farmer who's been working this land for 40 years and knows the changes in the fruit, knows the patterns of the weather, that the knowledge that he holds is equal to somebody here with a Ph.D. And that's something that needs to happen. I think a big part of how I became involved in speaking out and telling my story is and honoring my spirituality, and that I think when we talk about our spirit, it's our creative power, and honoring that creativity inside all of us to enact change, to spread messages, whether it's through art, through poetry, sing, song, dance, like all of those things need to be honored. And if you notice that's something that's kind of being squashed, especially in education and with our children, and I think it's part of that kind of overall culture of violence that's trying to diminish that creative power of our spirit. And so I'm not the best at speaking about things like this out loud, but I write poems, and I just started kind of sharing these poetries, and it's a way to get to the heart of things, and so much of that assimilation and colonization has been taking away our connection to our heart and spirit, and just making us head people and thinking only with our minds. And that's where that scientificness has been elevated, I think, to where it's we won't listen to anything else unless it's validated by that. And so what we've been doing is trying to reinsert that spirit back into spaces where normally you wouldn't see it. So like this altar out front, there's the water, there's the feathers, there's the earth, there's the seeds, there's ash from ceremony, in the jar there's water from all 4 directions of the world, and it's here listening to us, and it's alive and it's awake. And when you're in a spiritual place, And it's a hard place to be. I mean, I've gone to ceremonies where you're up at sunrise with prayer and you're closing with prayer, and it's a really hard place to be energetically. It's easy to be and to just fall into this negativity where it's just you only have yourself to worry about. Okay, I gotta hurry if I want to read this poem. But when you're in that place, you're able to hear the natural world communicate with you. And it's there trying to communicate with us all the time, but we're so into this like material world and everything that it's hard for us to be present and hear it, and hear what she's telling us. And you talk about seeing signs, you talk about seeing eagles, you talk about seeing, like, you all have those moments where something comes up to you at that moment you needed it. When a piece of pottery is presented to you, you know, or you're connected when you're in that spiritual way. And so I think it's in that space that when that creative power is really honored. And so I'm going to read a poem that I wrote, never pursued getting published, but this was actually published in a Centers for Disease Control report. So that's just another example of how you can insert these creative voices into these spaces, or normally you wouldn't expect to see see that happen. And so this was the introduction to a technical report on environmental releases at Los Alamos. And it's dedicated to the women of Las Mujeres Hablan and those working for justice in their communities, with special thanks to Tina Cordova, who was mentioned earlier. Growing up, I was disconnected. Some things were not discussed among people who valued hard work and employment. One-sided silence through years of schooling. I learned about the nuclear age from movies and propaganda and Bradbury field trips, the glorified versions of a history that happened in my own backyard. In our state of enchantment, pristine open spaces and a population not respected by a higher nation, still living off the land as the industrial age passed them by, only to get thrust into nuclear realization beneath a mission, urgent and thick with intensity, beneath a shroud of secrecy. I was not yet born the day scientists feared for our sky, thoughts of atmospheric ignition and that everyone would die. I was not yet born when the Jemez was taken, homesteaders relocated, not of their volition, uranium miners on the road to perdition, beloved mountains occupied before I could praise them, disconnected from ancestral knowledge in 3 generations. Clan animals vanished, even as the jobs began to appear. Unprotected hired hands from the valley, a job was nothing to fear. It was a welcome exchange in hard times. I wasn't yet born the day silver ash rained down for days and a plume of poison drifted over state lines. Radioactive fallout on cisterns of drinking water, on crops and livestock who all miscarried that year. The people were lied to and went about life as usual while the truth fled with bread over their mouths to keep from breathing air they knew was foul. And the world was changed forever. A month later, 80,000 people were killed instantly, justified atrocity named enemy, and the book was closed on Trinity. Even though it was our own citizens who were bombed, children born into an experimental population with a cancer rate way higher than the average nation, entire families still sick and dying, still crying for the elders and children they lost too soon. I was born into military healthcare, mixed blood and desert beauty. Free from the shame of colonized blame, my grandfather employed by Sandia, my downwinder grandmothers who birthed babies and taught me songs while washing tainted laundry and making pots from local clay. I wonder now, can earth decay? Eating the elk my uncles brought down, breathing fire smoke from trees that drank, from discarded waste placed any place. Today, my daughters are born into single driver car twice daily parades, dependence on industrial weapon economic charades, the sound of bombs exploding as we pray towards the sun in mornings. Will my cornmeal prayers protect them as they play in ditches, carrying water from a source 3 miles away from tritium releases? What did my oldest get exposed to as I breathed in smoke from a tech area burned 3 times over? What kind of poison can penetrate the walls of my womb? What stories were silenced and why and from whom? The truth must be told from the people who lived it, who dwell in this place that houses our spirit. Respectfully, I pray for past, present, and future souls to be at peace someday, for clean earth, air, and water, so my children can play, splashing and laughing as we tend to our gardens, beneath the loving gaze of our sacred mountains, free of fear from invisible poison, free to hear undisturbed and clear the birds sing in the morning, as we continue to question and speak our points of view. Let us share the stories anew that have never been told, and release this pain not even a century old. No longer shamed by accusations of ignorance, let our diverse voices be our deliverance. No breath here is unimportant. We are free to pray, each in our own ways, for justice, strong leaders, and supportive institutions, a foundation for our expectations as we welcome in this time of healing for the greater good of past, present, and future generations. Kuntawaha.
I think I speak for everybody here when I just say how honored we all are to have the five of you present with us.